A longtime A&E star has died. Daryl Sheets, who starred on Storage Wars from 2010 to 2023, was found dead at a residence in Lake Havasu City, Arizona.
Behind every winning bid on Storage Wars was a smile the cameras loved, and a secret the cameras never showed. Mark Balelo strutted into auctions, wrapped in confidence and cash, the man everyone called Rico Suave. But confidence couldn't save him. Gunter Nezhoda's warmth hid a battle raging quietly inside his own body. Weiss walked away from fame, only to nearly lose his life on the open road years later. Which stars paid the highest price for stardom? What really happened once the cameras stopped rolling? The answers are far darker than anything that ever aired on television. Stay with us. Let's dive into the evidence and uncover the truth. Number 1. Mark Balelo. A closed garage, a running engine, a silence that would never be explained the same way twice. That is where Mark Balelo's story ended, just 2 days after he told the people closest to him that he felt scared and lost. Mark joined Storage Wars in Season 2, and fans noticed him the moment he walked on screen. He carried a leather bag stuffed with cash, wore suits that looked like they belonged on a Las Vegas stage, and moved through every auction like the building already belonged to him. Other buyers rolled their eyes at his big, showy moves, but nobody could look away when he was in the room. Fans gave him a nickname that stuck instantly: Rico Suave, a title that fit his smooth talk and flashy style perfectly. Every auction he entered turned into a small show of its own. He would size up a locker in seconds.
That's way, Mark. You got it for $2,750 big bucks.
Well, based on what lockers, it looks to be like a $25,000, $30,000 locker.
Throw out a number that made other bidders pause and grin while they scrambled to decide whether to match him. Producers quickly realized that whenever Mark showed up on camera, viewers leaned in a little closer, waiting to see what outrageous move he would make next. That kind of screen presence does not come along often, and the show leaned into it, giving him more airtime as his popularity grew across seasons 2 through 4. His business, Balelo Incorporated, moved fast. Storage units turned into store shelves within days, and customers lined up looking for a good deal. Mark knew how to sell, and more importantly, he knew how to close. He had the kind of charm that made cameras love him, the kind that made producers see a natural star the moment he walked through the door. When Storage Wars came calling, it felt like the perfect match. What viewers saw on their screens, though, was only the surface of who Mark really was. Underneath the suits and the confidence, a second story was quietly running its course. For years, Mark had been fighting a serious addiction to methamphetamine, a battle that had taken hold of his life long before Storage Wars ever gave him a spotlight. That spotlight only made the grip tighter. Every awkward moment and every embarrassing scene played out in front of millions of strangers, and the more the public judged him, the deeper his shame grew. He tried to keep his business running and his addiction hidden at the same time, but the pressure became too heavy to carry alone. Those who worked closely with him later described a man torn between two completely different lives. In front of the cameras, he played the part of a fearless, unstoppable buyer who never doubted himself for a second. Away from set, he was fighting a private war that television never captured, one that grew heavier with every episode that aired. The attention that should have felt like a reward instead became one more source of pressure he did not know how to carry. By early 2013, everything was falling apart fast. Police arrested him on a methamphetamine charge, and he posted bail within hours, walking out of jail trying to act like nothing had happened. Inside, though, he was breaking down. He visited his fiancée, Elizabeth, not long after his release, and told her he felt devastated and afraid. She had no idea just how close to the edge he really was, and there was little anyone around him could have done in that short window of time. 2 days later, Elizabeth found him inside his car, parked in the closed garage of his own auction house. The engine had been left running. Mark Balelo died at just 40 years old. Officials ruled his death a suicide, and the news hit fans and fellow cast members hard. A network spokesperson said the entire Storage Wars family was deeply saddened, and other auctioneers shared their grief publicly in the days that followed, offering support to the fiancé and children he left behind. His death did not only affect the people who had watched him on television for a handful of seasons. Balelo Incorporated had supported around a dozen full-time workers, ordinary people who sorted through units, ran the register, drove trucks across town, and kept the books in order. None of them were chasing fame. They were simply trying to earn a living and support their own families. When Mark died, the business closed almost overnight because there was no one left to take it over. 12 households suddenly lost their main source of income, and years of specialized skills in storage auctions did not easily transfer into other kinds of work. Word of his death spread quickly across social media, catching fans completely off guard. Many had only seen him as a colorful character who added drama to a handful of episodes, never imagining the private pain sitting just behind his confident smile. A fellow auctioneer from the show wrote publicly about the sadness the entire cast felt, sending support to the small children and the fiancé Mark left behind. Even people who had never met him in person felt the loss, because the version of Mark they knew from television had seemed larger than life, someone who could talk his way out of anything. Mark Balelo built an image of a man who had it all figured out, a man who never lost, never worried, and never needed help from anyone. Underneath that image, he was quietly drowning the entire time, and almost nobody outside his closest circle ever saw it coming until it was already too late. His story remains one of the most heartbreaking reminders that a smile in front of a camera does not always tell the full truth about what someone is carrying. Number 2. Mo Prigo. For 6 long years, Mo Prigo showed up in front of cameras with the same sharp wit and stylish shoes that fans had grown to love. What almost nobody watching at home knew was that, the entire time, he was quietly fighting for his life. Morris Mo Prigo grew up in Syracuse, New York, long before storage auctions or reality television ever entered his life. He studied at Syracuse University before training in podiatric medicine, eventually building a busy practice in Dallas that lasted more than 4 decades. Patients loved his gentle care and his big, generous personality, and colleagues respected him enough to elect him president of a statewide podiatric association. Somewhere along the way, Mo also fell in love with collecting antiques, a hobby that slowly grew into a serious passion spanning more than 30 years. Storage Wars. Texas gave audiences a fresh setting for the same treasure-hunting formula that had made the original series such a hit.
Ooh, this is a tasty buy.
Somebody or some group must have really hated this guy. This doesn't look Native American. This looks more like African.
And casting directors wanted personalities who felt just as authentic as the California cast. When Storage Wars Texas began casting, Mo was a natural fit. Fans called him the Doc, a nod to his day job, and loved watching him team up with fellow buyer Mary Padian at auction after auction. The two built one of the most entertaining partnerships the spin-off series ever had, trading jokes while hunting through other people's abandoned belongings. Mo was tall, loud in the best possible way, and impossible to miss thanks to his flashy footwear and confident presence at every sale. Away from the auctions, he ran an antique boutique called River Regency Modern, where he displayed the finest pieces he had gathered over the years. Whatever he found and could not sell often ended up piled in his own backyard, much to the frustration of his wife, Michaela, a woman he lovingly called his wife for life throughout their 19 years of marriage. Mo was a father to a daughter named Gina and a stepfather figure who loved his family fiercely. He filled his free time with travel, gardening, basketball, swimming, and teaching, refusing to let any part of his busy life slow down. Behind that easy smile, Mo carried the discipline of a man who had spent his whole career caring for other people. Patients often said he treated them less like customers and more like family, taking extra time to explain every treatment and check in long after their appointments had ended. That same patience carried over into how he handled his own health struggles, choosing quiet strength over public sympathy. What fans did not know while watching him bid confidently on units was that Mo had been quietly battling a serious illness for years before his death. He kept working as a podiatrist, kept collecting antiques, and kept showing up to film with the same energy that had made him a fan favorite from his very first episode. He never let the diagnosis define how the world saw him, and he never let it show through the screen. On March 4, 2021, after 6 years of fighting, Mo Prigo passed away at the age of 78. A small service was held in Texas, surrounded by the wife and family who had supported him through every difficult step of his illness. Fans who remembered his humor and his warmth were left with a simple, painful truth. The man who always seemed so full of life had been fighting for that very life behind the scenes the entire time they watched him on their screens. Longtime viewers of Storage Wars Texas went back and re-watched his old episodes after learning the news, searching for any small clue they might have missed the first time around, and finding none. In his final years, Mo leaned on his family more than ever. His stepson Chase and his 2 grandsons, Zachary and Gavin, remained close to him throughout his illness, and Michaela stayed by his side through every appointment and every difficult stretch of treatment. Friends who visited during that time later said, Mo rarely complained, choosing instead to talk about his next antique find or his daughter's latest visit, rather than dwell on how sick he actually felt. Mo never allowed his illness to become part of his public story. He chose instead to let people remember him through laughter, sharp bids, and loud, colorful shoes, rather than through the private battle he carried so quietly for 6 long years. To this day, fans who rewatch old episodes of Storage Wars Texas often say the same thing. Nothing about his energy on screen ever hinted at what he was truly going through at home. Number 3. Gunter Nezhoda. In March 2023, fans opened their phones to a video that stopped them cold. A son was telling the world that his father was gone, and that the illness behind it had only been discovered 6 months earlier. Gunter Nezhoda became a familiar face on Storage Wars starting in Season 8, appearing alongside his son, Rico Nezhoda. Rico and his wife Casey already ran a thrift shop in Poway, California, known as the Bargain Hunter, and when Gunter began joining his son at auctions, fans immediately loved watching the two of them together. Seeing a father teach his son how to spot value hidden inside other people's leftovers felt honest in a way that stood apart from the show's louder, more dramatic personalities. Gunter was calm, easygoing, and quick with a joke that made everyone around him smile. Long before storage auctions entered his life, he had lived an interesting story of his own. Born in Austria, Gunter had worked as an actor in a handful of small films, played bass guitar alongside respected musicians.
I'm here for 30 years now and I play music ever since in America as well.
And spent years developing a serious passion for photography. When he finally joined his son on screen, he brought all of that life experience with him, along with a genuine warmth that both fans and fellow cast members noticed the very first time they met him. The Bargain Hunter thrift store had built its reputation long before Gunter ever appeared on television, known locally for turning donated furniture and forgotten belongings into pieces people genuinely wanted. Once cameras started following Rico and his father together, That reputation spread far beyond Poway, drawing new customers eager to see the store they recognized from the show.
The store manager says people from all over come into the thrift store just to get their hands on heavily discounted items.
His appearances on the show were never constant, but every time he showed up, viewers felt his presence. Off camera, he kept helping run the family thrift store, making sure customers kept finding little treasures long after the film crews had packed up and gone home for the day. People who worked alongside him on set often said the same thing. Gunter never had an unkind word said about him. He was simply someone people loved being around, whether they were fellow cast members or crew members setting up lights for the next scene. Before storage auctions and reality television ever entered the picture, Gunter had already lived several lifetimes' worth of experience across different countries and careers. He carried himself with the calm confidence of someone who had seen a great deal of the world, yet he never let that experience make him feel bigger than the people around him. That grounded, humble quality is part of why so many people, on set and off, felt an instant connection to him. In 2023, everything changed very quickly. Gunter began feeling unusually tired and short of breath, and at first, he assumed it was nothing more than the wear of years spent working hard at auctions and on set. The tiredness did not go away, and the symptoms kept getting worse. After finally seeking medical attention, doctors delivered devastating news. Gunter had lung cancer, and the disease had already spread through his body. He had smoked for roughly 30 years, and once doctors found the cancer, it moved with frightening speed, leaving very few options for treatment. Just 6 months after his diagnosis, Gunter Nezhoda passed away peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by the family who loved him most. He was 67 years old. His son René shared the painful news directly with fans through an emotional video, explaining that his father had quietly fought the illness for half a year and had passed without pain, at peace, and surrounded by people who loved him. The outpouring of support that followed showed just how deeply Gunter had connected with fans who only ever knew him through a television screen. Thousands of comments poured in under the video within hours, many written by strangers who said they felt like they had lost a member of their own family, even though they had never met him in person. Fellow cast members shared tributes in the days after his passing, describing him as one of the few people on the show who never seemed to make a single enemy. Crew members who worked behind the scenes echoed the same sentiment, remembering him as someone who greeted everyone on set with the same friendly warmth, whether they were a producer, a camera operator, or a first-time visitor to an auction. His son René has since continued appearing on the show, often speaking about how much his father's lessons about patience and kindness shaped the way he now approaches both business and life. Number 4. Daryl Sheets. Just after 2 in the morning, police were called to a quiet home in Arizona. What officers found there ended one of the most recognizable careers in reality television, and left behind more questions than the public has ever fully answered. Daryl Sheets had been part of Storage Wars since the very beginning.
Hey, Daryl Sheets from Storage Wars here. I've been doing this storage locker auction thing for about 35 years now.
Back when the show first debuted in 2010, fans knew him instantly as the Gambler, a nickname he earned by always chasing the big win instead of playing it safe, like some of his more cautious competitors. Over the years, he appeared in more than 160 episodes, often searching alongside his son Brandon, teaching him the same instincts that had built his own career. Daryl loved telling stories about his biggest scores, including rare art pieces he claimed to have discovered buried inside forgotten storage units over the decades. His bold confidence and love of risk made him one of the show's most memorable original cast members from day one. When Storage Wars first premiered, nobody expected a show about abandoned storage lockers to become a ratings hit. But Daryl's larger-than-life personality helped turn it into exactly that. His willingness to bet big, even when the odds looked terrible, gave the show some of its most tense and memorable moments, and network's executives quickly understood that his gambles made for great television. After many years on the main series, Daryl eventually stepped back from filming regularly and moved to Lake Havasu City, Arizona. There, he opened a shop called Show Me Your Junk, staying close to the business and the lifestyle he had spent his whole life mastering. He had already faced serious health scares in the years before that move, including a heart attack in 2019 that required hospitalization and surgery. Even after that frightening health scare, Daryl pushed through recovery and kept working, kept posting online, and kept connecting with fans who had followed his career for more than a decade. In his final days, something felt different to the people who knew him best. A longtime co-star later described an unusual business deal Daryl made shortly before his death, accepting far less money than he normally would have fought for during any negotiation. At the time, it seemed like nothing more than a strange, small moment between old friends. Looking back on it later, that same friend said it felt like Daryl had quietly been tying up loose ends, though nobody around him understood the full weight of what was happening at the time. Fans who followed Daryl closely online had noticed him posting more frequently about frustration with a person who seemed to be harassing him, though few realized just how much it might have been weighing on him. Looking back, several people close to him have said the signs were there, just hidden behind the same tough, confident exterior that had defined his entire career. On April 22, 2026, police were dispatched to his home after receiving a report of a deceased individual. Officers arrived to find Daryl Sheets dead at 67 years old. Investigators later confirmed that his death was a suicide, following the medical examiner's review.
In a statement that the 67-year-old was found dead at a home in Lake Havasu City, Arizona on April 22nd. Police said he appeared to have died by suicide.
A close friend and fellow cast member spoke publicly about online harassment that Daryl had reportedly been dealing with in the months before his death, and he publicly asked authorities to look closely into whoever had been targeting him online. Born in California in 1958, Daryl had spent nearly his entire adult life inside the world of storage auctions, long before any television crew ever showed up to film him. He used to joke about the rare pieces he had scored over the years, claiming to have once found valuable artwork worth far more than anyone expected from a forgotten storage locker. That kind of story became part of his legend among fans, a symbol of exactly why people kept tuning in, season after season, to watch him take one more gamble. The news spread fast, shaking a fan base that had followed Daryl for well over a decade of storage auctions and reality television. A network representative said the entire Storage Wars family was mourning the loss of a man who had become part of so many living rooms across the country. Fans flooded social media with old clips and favorite memories, many saying they simply could not believe the news was real. For someone who had built his entire on-screen persona around confidence, big bets, and fearless risk-taking, his final days revealed a much quieter and far more painful story running underneath all of it, one that fans never got the chance to see until it was already too late. His death remains under continued investigation, and the questions surrounding his final weeks are still being answered. Longtime fans have continued sharing memories of him online, clinging to old footage of his boldest wins as a way of celebrating who he was, rather than focusing only on how his story came to an end. 4 men, 4 very different lives, and 4 losses that reminded fans just how much can hide behind a camera. Mark Balelo, Mo Prigo, Gunter Nezhoda, and Daryl Sheets each brought something different to Storage Wars, and each left behind people who loved them more than any auction could ever measure. Fame gave them an audience, but it never protected them from the private battles happening off-screen. Their stories deserve to be remembered honestly, not just for the characters they played, but for the real struggles fans never saw. If these stories moved you, tell us which one stayed with you the most in the comments below, and share this video with someone who remembers them too. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story we uncover.